Hey guys, Mrs. Fox here with part one of your Unit 7.1 PowerPoint. War erupts and rages on. We're finally here. It's the Civil War. Okay, the moment you surely have all been waiting for all year. All right, so make sure you have everything you need for Cornell notes. I'm not always going to address that you need a left-hand side question. Remember, you're doing those on your own. Left-hand side questions should not be a yes or a no question. They should not be a one or two word answer question. They should be something that takes at least a sentence, if not more, to answer. Okay, so make sure you're doing that as we go along with our notes. You're busting out your highlighter colors as we're moving on. Okay, if you need more time to get down your title and stuff, push pause because here we go. Question number one. Okay, so question one. As you guys may remember, the South has decided to secede. Dun, dun, dun. Well, not all of the South yet, but some of the states have decided to break away, right? South Carolina and some others, and they get themselves a president, Jefferson Davis, and they call themselves the Confederate States of America. All right, so about 2 weeks after Jefferson Davis has been named as president of the new Confederacy or the South, all right, Abraham Lincoln does his first inaugural address, which means it's like, his first day in office. He's going to make a speech about his plans for his 4-year term as president. And he is the 16th president, right, of the United States. Throughout his inaugural address, he quotes the Constitution several times. He quotes the Declaration of Independence and the whole idea of friendship and that we all are stronger together and that he does not want secession. He does not want the South to stay separated from what is left of the Union or the United States. Okay, he wants to maintain the unity of the country. That's kind of his main message to the people. And even though the South is now the Confederacy, trust me, they are paying attention to this speech, right? Originally, Lincoln ends the speech by saying, so hey, South, ball's in your court, is it going to be war or is it going to be peace? But he was advised against making it sound so threatening on an ending note, and instead made it way more about unity and the importance of staying together and all of the history we've been through together and all of that kind of stuff. Okay. He also makes very clear that he's not willing to abandon the government that is located throughout the South because, 5 seconds ago, we were all one country together. So there's forts and ports and all kinds of things that have military personnel at them. And not all of them are like, yes, I agree, we're now Confederates. Some of those people are Union loyalists, okay, that are now working at forts and things in the South. And so Lincoln makes clear, hey, I'm not abandoning these guys just because you guys pulled away. We have a job to do. And in Lincoln's mind, you guys legally had no right to leave anyways. Like to him, you guys are still part of the US. You're having a little bit of a tantrum right now and we need to work this out. Okay, so he makes clear that he's going to need to resupply forts and stuff as they run out of supplies and that sort of thing. So really, upon a bated breath, everybody waits to see what's going to happen. Okay. All right, draw a line underneath everything you just wrote all the way across your page. All right, so one of those forts that has Union loyalists at it, okay, was Fort Sumter, okay? It's in South Carolina, which has seceded, so it's in Confederate territory, but everybody working at the fort is loyal to the Union, and they're running out of supplies, all right? And so the fort says, hey, Lincoln, we need supplies, and Lincoln says, yeah, I'm not abandoning you guys, right? So he sends a supply line down into South Carolina to give supplies to the fort. But the Confederacy stops the supplies and forces them to turn around. Okay, so this is kind of declaring, yeah, we're not going to go about this peacefully, North. Okay, you stay out of our, jurisdiction kind of a thing. All right, and so ultimately, about a day later, the Confederacy makes a big, bold statement by firing on Fort Sumter on April 12th, 1861. Okay, so 1861 is going to be the start of the American Civil War, 1861. Remember that date. All right, it lasted about 34 hours, and of course the Union's going to defend themselves, so they fire back onto the Confederacy. There is actually no deaths that take place during this scrimmage between the Confederacy and the Union. All right, but it is the first kind of, you know, instance, okay, of Civil War happenings. Some people argue that this is the first battle. Some people will say the next thing that happens, which is the Battle of Bull Run, is really the first battle. Okay, this is definitely not a major incident. Nobody dies, but it is definitely the Confederacy saying, hey, we're not going quietly. You guys stay out. You're not welcome here. All right, so what Lincoln decides to do when this happens is, okay, we obviously need to be ready for a bit of a squabble to ensue here, right? The Confederates don't want to come back to us peacefully. So he asks the North for 75,000 militiamen, volunteers, okay? At this point, they are all untrained army people, right? For 90 days. He's thinking this is going to be short and sweet. We need to stop the uprising in the South. You know, they're just having a little hissy fit, and we got to pull them back and make them see reason. So he asks for 75,000 people in 90 days, or for 90 days. This is applauded by some Union states who are willing to send volunteers. Other Union states get upset that he's asking for volunteers to come and possibly fight. And so after Fort Sumter, other states will end up seceding and ultimately joining the Union as well. Okay, Virginia, North Carolina, Tennessee, and Arkansas all end up voting to join the Confederacy after Fort Sumter and not agreeing with Lincoln asking for men and, you know, other factors. All right, if you need more time, draw a line underneath everything you just wrote. Push pause if you're still working on it. Give yourself a left-hand side question. Don't forget to underline and highlight all that super duper very important stuff. Of course, I have video clips for you guys. This stuff is engaging. I try to pick the ones that are, you know, more modern and have comedy or animation or graphics or things. So take a look at some of those. Do you got to watch them all? Heck no, but at least get some of those in, okay? All right, so question 3, the importance of Virginia. So Virginia is not one of the states that immediately secedes when South Carolina and some of the states go, right? But after Fort Sumter, Virginia decides that they are going to secede and join the Confederacy. They are a slave state, okay? You will end up finding most of the slave states will secede, not all of them, but most. Virginia is a big win for the Confederacy. This is a big deal, okay? Because Virginia from the southern states is one of the most populous and one of the wealthiest. So with them, they're getting, you know, talent, they're getting people, they're getting money by Virginia joining the Confederate cause. All right, also, it is home to Robert E. Lee. Remember this name. Robert E. Lee is one of the main generals that will end up fighting throughout the American Civil War. He is going to fight for the Confederacy, which remember is the South, who is looking at this as wanting to preserve their way of life. This was not an easy decision for Robert E. Lee, guys. He actually, up until Fort Sumter happened, he was already working in the military for the United States of America. And he didn't necessarily agree with all of the reasons why the South had chosen to secede or how they had gone about seceding. And so he was very torn about what to do. He paced back and forth in his house for like 3 days, didn't eat, didn't sleep, nobody could talk to him, and he just, you know, prayed and thought and weighed pros and cons about really what to do. It really upset him to maybe abandon the Union to go join the South, but ultimately, as a lot of soldiers will ultimately do, they decide to stick with their home state. And he's from Virginia. Virginia seceded. So, you know, Virginia pride. You guys very much have grown up in a culture where the United States is much more united. And we think of, you know, each other as brothers in arms, and we're all in this together, these 50 states. Okay, you have to remember back then, they're not as united in feeling yet. You had a lot more loyalty to your state than you necessarily did to your country a lot of the time. And so a lot of these military people will not necessarily agree with the side that they fight for, but they feel, you know, state pride and feel an obligation to represent their state. So Robert E. Lee ultimately does end up deciding to fight for the Confederacy, despite personally having some mixed feelings about that. That is a huge win for the Confederacy. Hands down, Robert E. Lee is going to be the #1 top dog, most awesome general that the South, the Confederacy, is going to have helping them on their side. So big win by getting Virginia. All right, draw a line underneath everything you just wrote all the way across your page. All right, then you've got these things called border states. Another good term to kind of know throughout the Civil War stuff we're going to be doing, guys. The border states play a key role in what ultimately will happen in the outcome of the war. The border states, if you look at the picture there on the slide, are the ones that are in light blue. So obviously the map on the slide, the dark blue states are the Union or the North. They're the ones that are anti-slavery and pro-tariffs, right? And then you've got the Confederacy, the Confederate States of America, who have pulled away. They're in red. They are all slave states, and they are trying to protect their way of life in slavery. Then you've got the light blue ones. The light blue ones are the border states. Here's the deal with the border states. The border states have slavery, okay, but they decide to stay pro-union. All right, and initially the border states will be Maryland, Delaware, Kentucky, and Missouri. Eventually what will happen when Virginia seceded and decided to join the Confederacy, not all Virginians agreed with that decision. They were torn, just like Robert E. Lee had been torn. And there's 39 counties located in the western portion of Virginia that really decide we don't want to be part of the Confederacy, and the Union ultimately will help them to pull away and break away from Virginia, and that's where West Virginia comes from, which is now a state, right? So West Virginia comes out of the Civil War. This happens in 1863, a couple years into the fighting, but ultimately West Virginia will also be a border state. Okay, so you've got Delaware, Maryland, Kentucky, Missouri, and eventually West Virginia. So five border states. Remember that. Okay, 5 border states. They stay loyal to the Union despite having slavery. So in the end, what will end up happening when push comes to shove is that you will have 24 states that will make up the Union, the North. Okay, and you will have 11 states who will be in the Confederacy or the South. Okay, and then of course you guys see on the map that there's some gray area. We own that land, but they're not states yet. They're just territories. And within the territories, you had mixed emotions. And a lot of the fighting and stuff, primarily, majority, does not happen in territory area. So you got 24 Union states, 11 Confederate states. You want to keep these numbers straight. 5 border states that help make up the 24 Union states, and then of course the 11 Confederate states that are going to be fighting each other. So obviously by sheer number, the North has more, right? 24 to 11. All right. It's going to be one of the factors of why we end up winning. Okay. All right. So if you need more time, push pause. Otherwise, draw a line underneath everything you just wrote all the way across your page. All right, taking a look at this map here, again, just a different map kind of showing you guys. All right, the dark gray in the South are the ones that seceded initially. Like South Carolina, remember, was first, and then those other ones followed before Fort Sumter happened. And then the light gray there, those are the ones that ultimately decide to go once Fort Sumter has taken place. So the light gray and the dark gray together make up the South, right? There's 11 of them. And then the light blue are the border states, and the dark blue are just Union states. And so together they make up all the Union, and that's 24, right? Okay, again, there's another video clip. Watch it. They're helpful. Don't forget. All right, so strengths and weaknesses, guys. You know, on paper, it sure looked like the North had most of the advantages. And yet, obviously, the South had some heart and gumption going into this because the war didn't last a few weeks or a few months, okay? It lasts years. So despite on paper looking like the North should crush them instantly, it didn't happen that fast. Okay, it took months and months and months and months and months and months and months of fighting for the Union to ultimately become victorious. We'll talk more about this slide in part 2. So when you're ready, come join me for 7.1 part 2, all right? And I will see you then.